Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Red Snake. Okay. Let's get started with the interesting fact of the day. Ben Simmons had at least 70 free throw attempts in the playoff series against Atlanta, and he shot um, the worst percentage of any NBA player in the postseason. Minimum, 70 attempts on free throws. So, if you want to look to one reason why the 76ers lost, that's one reason why. Um, but before I talk about that, I want to talk about the conference finals matchups now. So you got the Clippers and Suns. Game one's already been decided by. If Chris Paul only misses one or two more games, I simply like Phoenix to win the series. Why? I feel like without Kawhi, I feel like when Chris Paul comes back, the Suns are going to have a clear advantage talent-wise because I feel like CP3 and Booker is better than Paul George and whoever you want to throw in there, whether it's Marcus Morris or Reggie Jackson or whoever. It's going to be a better duo there. And also the Suns, they play really good defense. Now the Jazz, they were a good defensive team, but for some reason, in that series, they just gotten really bad on defense. But the Phoenix is actually really good on defense. They have multiple wing defenders, which is key because they have Mikal Bridges, Torrey Craig, Jay Crowder, some multiple 3-and-D guys. So I feel like the Suns, are a better matchup though. Now the Clippers, I still think are deeper than the Suns, but other than that advantage, I feel like everything else is advantage for the Suns, despite Chris Paul potentially missing a few games. So I predict that the Suns will win this series in 6 games. Now, if you tell me that Chris Paul does not come back to like maybe Game 5 or something like that really late, okay, yeah, then I think it'll go 7 games and it can go either way, Suns or Clippers. But assuming that he only has to miss one, maybe two more games, I feel like the Suns can weather the storm, until Chris Paul comes back, and then that's where they can put, their foot on the gas pedal, and win the series and get control of it. So I feel like they can go to their first finals in a long time. Okay, so now for the Hawks and Bucks, and this is interesting. So this will be the this will be the second straight year that it's going to be a 3 seed versus 5 seed in the Eastern Conference Finals. So if Atlanta wins this series, then it'll be the second time in a row that a 5 seed has gone to the NBA Finals, which is crazy because typically 5 seeds don't go to NBA Finals. Um, and what's also interesting is that both 1 seeds are out. And apparently, I read a stat that said that hasn't happened since 1989 or something. It's been a long time, so that's pretty interesting as well. But I mean, injuries and all that's what you're gonna get. Um, Now, I feel like Atlanta has kind of caught a break here because they played the Knicks in the first round, which is a very good defensive team, but Atlanta didn't have to worry about the Knicks outscoring them. Like they knew they're the better offensive team and they're going to score. And then when they faced Philly, they got to face Embiid on a torn meniscus. Even though he still performs, has some good games and good numbers and all that, he performed on a torn meniscus. And then besides Seth Curry, none of the other players, were reliable consistently on offense. So and of course Danny Green being injured. So I feel like they definitely caught a break there. Um, I feel like this is going to be a different animal for the Hawks versus the Bucks. Here's why. Reason number one: the Bucks have so many defenders. Like Philly has so many defenders, so you're still going to get that defense every now. Like I feel like Drew Holiday, can lock up Trae Young, even PJ Tucker to a degree can lock up Trae Young, and then Giannis I feel like can lock up Josh Collins. Tucker or Connaughton can lock up Gallinari. So I feel like those offensive players for Atlanta aren't going to be able to get going, but for some reason they are able to get going. I feel like the Bucks, unlike Philly, especially in New York, can be able to outscore them. Because Giannis can go for 40. Middleton, as he did his last series, he's clutch. He's been going for like 30 and stuff like that. And of course, Drew Holiday, he struggles sometimes. He can score. Brook Lopez can score. That's why I like the Bucks in this series. And technically, I wouldn't be surprised if it's like a Bucks sweeper. I think there's that much advantage over the Hawks. But I'm not going to disrespect the Hawks like that. I'm going to appreciate what they've done and give them some respect. So I feel like the Hawks will get you 1 game at the very least, but I'm predicting it'll take 6 games for the Bucks to close them out. Because remember, the Bucks are undefeated at home, and even though the Hawks have been a very good road team in the playoffs so far, something's got to give there. Either the Hawks are going to continue to win on the road and make this a good series, or the Bucks are going to keep their home court advantage, and therefore the Hawks are going to leave early. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. So in life, we all face dilemmas. Do you get a cheap car that's potentially run to the ground? You're going to have to pay, a lot of money in to get fixed and something potentially was going to come up, or do you go for the brand new car or really new car to where, yeah, you're going to have to maybe get a loan, make some payments, but at least that car is going to be reliable. And those are two different dilemmas because neither choice preferable. You preferably get a new car that you don't have to pay. They can get don't have to make any payments on. That's what you prefer. But between the two, if you have to make a choice, um, they're not either good. None of these choices are good, is what I'm trying to say. So therefore, you have to pick between one. That's what a dilemma is, basically. So this is what the Jazz had on the last day of the regular season. They had a choice. They could either win and keep the number one seed, and no, they would have to face most likely the Clippers in the second round, or they could have tanked that last game, gotten the second seed, and then have to face the Lakers in the first round, or Warriors, because at that time, they didn't know if it was going to be Lakers or Warriors necessarily. But assumingly, and rightfully so, it was the Lakers in the first round. Now, I can understand why the Jazz chose the first option. The Lakers, like LeBron in the playoffs, is usually a very scary thing. Jazz, I like I like a lot of things about the matchup wise. The one thing I don't like about the matchups is that they have no answer for AD. That's just simple as that. Especially when AD plays, the four, because the Jazz don't have like a really much of a power forward. They have Gobert, who guard, whoever's the five. Let's say Andre Drummond, and then a bunch of other small guys. So AD would have a nice matchup there. And a potential another round, first round exit would be humiliating for the Jazz, especially after the debacle last year at the playoffs for the Jazz. And then also, it's like, it's nice to have home court advantage throughout the playoffs. You don't have to worry about it until the conference finals. All of a sudden you have to win on the road. It's like, no, you get to have home court advantage. So I understand why they made that choice. But in the end, they made the wrong choice. For the record, I would have tanked to get that second seed. Because we knew LeBron was not 100% and AD was 100%, I would have liked my chances better against them. And I know the Lakers, like I said, can't outscore the Jazz from the perimeter, so I would have liked that matchup better. And even for some reason, the Warriors would have beaten the Lakers, and they would have gotten the seventh seed. Obviously, I was still like the Jazz over them because besides Steph Curry, you don't really have to have anyone else to worry about there. So the Clippers, what's interesting for them is that they had a choice. They could have gotten the 3 seed, and then face an easy Portland team in the first round with no defense, and then have to face, potentially Phoenix or Lakers in the second round, which both options they didn't like. They're like, okay, we would rather wait for either one of them to the conference finals because we feel like we match up better with the Jazz, so therefore we're going to go that route. Now, they almost made the wrong choice there because the Mavs almost got them, but in the end, they made the right choice there. And what stinks for the Jazz is that if you would have known, obviously, that LeBron 80 100%, and 80 was going to get a groin injury and be out of the playoffs, you would have done that route. Especially since, if you would have assuming you beat the Lakers in the next round, you would have faced either a bad Portland defense or Nuggets without Jamal Murray and all that. So you would have automatically gone to the conference finals just like that if they would have tanked that last game of the regular season. So instead of going, for the brand new car, making payments, but no one's reliable, they went with the other dilemma and they decide to do the cheap car route. Now they have to pay the consequences for that decision as the Jazz once again can get upset in a round and have to blow a 25-point lead to do so. So it'll be interesting to see for future reference what type of decisions they make as far as tanking and trying to get a certain seed in the future, because this is a prime example of a dilemma gone wrong, or a risk gone wrong, if you will. So something that's mind-boggling throughout these playoffs is how many big leads have been blown. For me, if you blow like at least a 15-plus lead, then that's where I consider it a huge lead, therefore making it an embarrassing lead that you gave up. Here are some examples of blown leads in this playoff so far. 76ers blew 26-point lead to the Hawks. 76ers blew another big lead to the Hawks. Bucks blew a 17-point lead to the Nets. Nets blew a 15-point lead to the Celtics. Jazz blew a 25-point lead to the Clippers. Mavs blew a 19-point lead against the Clippers. Blazers threw a 15-point lead against Denver. And those are not even all the big leads that have been blown. Those are just the ones that the leads were blown and then they lost the game. Because there's been plenty of times where the Jazz were up 21 points to the Clippers in the second game of the playoffs, and then Clippers came back to take a lead, and then Jazz took care of it. So therefore, we don't remember those type of leads being blown as much, because in the end, that team they gave it at least still end up finding a way to win the game. So I'm not sure why all these leads are getting blown a lot. It's kind of mind-boggling for me. But it'll be interesting to see if this is continuing to be a trend. I think for the NBA, it's a good trend to have, because then it provides a lot of chaos and stuff like that. But I mean, if it's your favorite team that's blowing the lead, then that's not, then the NBA fans really get excited for that. So it'll be kind of interesting to see if this continues, and what sort of adjustments the coaches or players themselves can make, to make sure that these type of big leads, like 26-point leads, are not being blown again, because those typically don't happen. So before I go, one more thing I want to talk about, I didn't get a chance to talk about it the other day, is Rick Carlisle decided to leave the Mavs. As a Mavs fan, I love this. Now, you may say you shouldn't wish for someone to lose their job, but he decided to quit, so different circumstances. Therefore, I don't feel that guilty at all. Now, even though I'm a Mavs fan and all that, and I got my wish, Mark Cuban, though, has to make the correct hire for GM, and then also for replacing Carl. Otherwise, this Carlisle couldn't all be for nothing. There are multiple names that have been thrown out. One is D'Antoni. On that one, give me a break. There are multiple names that are way better than D'Antoni, especially since the Mavs have defensive problems, so D'Antoni ain't going to fix that. I've also heard Terry Stotts, who's an assistant on that 2011 Mavs championship team, but again, he couldn't do anything important with Dame Lillard, CJ McCollum, so I kind of want to hear it. Chauncey Billups has been mentioned, but looks like he's really more contending for either Portland or Boston at this point, so I'm not going to expect that one. It wouldn't surprise me. Cuban's the first one to hire first female coach, Becky Hammond. I know she's a finalist for Portland as well, so I feel like if Chauncey Billups gets hired for Portland, then Becky Hammond could be a potential candidate there, although again, that wouldn't be my first choice. So my top two choices come to this. One is Jason Kidd. He won a chip there as a player, beloved by fans. As a better defensive coach, which is what we needed. A really good play developer. That's what he's known for, is play developer. So that's who I'd go with. Or the other option is already an assistant on the staff in Jamal Mosley. Apparently he's a defensive-minded coach, and was a temp really head coach back when Carlisle had to miss a game due to COVID, and he led the team to win against the Knicks, but not only did that, but held them to score in the 80s. So very good defensive game there. So it shows what he's potentially capable of in the future. But also the biggest reason why is because Luka loves Mosley, and the players themselves love Mosley. So that'd be a very safe hire to go with some of the players loving all that. But you have to be careful sometimes, because sometimes the safe hire isn't always the best hire. I feel like even though the players love Mosley, I feel like if they were to hire Jason Kidd, for example, I feel like they would get on board with that. So if Cuban was smart here, he would hire one of those two coaches, in my opinion. He would not hire a D'Antoni or Terry Stotts. If he does, then I feel like that's not good. Like, Mark Cuban should just sell the team at that point, because he's taken a while to find he hasn't really found a good team, for Luka or Dirk back then. If he botches coaching hire, then fans are going to call for him. As the owner, he can't be fired, but people are going to be upset, including me. So for that today, please subscribe to my podcast, tell them about me. In my next podcast, I'm going to go over the 4 teams I lost last round, and go over what they need to do, what adjustments they make for next season. Thank you very much, and y'all have a wonderful day.